Hello and good evening. Today I would like to talk about, as the name suggests, the chase sequence. In my time I've come across many a chase sequence, especially in the horror genre of video games. Many of these sequences tend to become frustrating upon repeated failure, which drains tension and all fear that it is supposed to evoke. Other times they are adrenaline-filled excitement that has you on the edge of your seat. The feeling of narrowly escaping your demise gives you the tension and release of what makes these sequences so good. So what makes one good or not? There's a few questions that I would like to answer while we examine each chase. 1. How does the repetition of failure affect the tension or user experience? 2. How clear is the direction or navigation? 3. Are there any changes between multiple attempts? 4. Are there any types of forgiveness? And 5. Is there any feedback to the player? Let's cycle through a few games with these questions in mind, in hopes to understand what makes a chase good or bad. In Under Depths of Fear, we are set in a large military ship filled with evil spirits and the threat of flooding. Throughout the game, you will be chased down tight corridors and maintenance walkways over large pumps and pipes that extend far beyond what you can see. In this first sequence, we aren't exactly being chased by what you would typically think of. We are being chased out by the water itself. Here we activate the door by turning a valve, fairly self-explanatory. What's not so self-explanatory is that you need to push this cart out of the way to progress. You can see that I tried, but there was no indication that I was actually moving the cart. What's even stranger is that later on in the game, there is a text prompt that tells you that you can move objects by running into them. So even though I struggled, I quickly realized that I could move the cart and proceeded. Fairly mediocre experience as far as the chase sequence goes, not overly frustrating but not overly punishing either. Here's a little one. You enter a room with no way out. At least it would seem that way. The door we entered through is now open. Walking through the door, the monster appears and we're dead. At least the other attempts are quick to execute, but it's unclear as to where to go. Oddly enough, the last attempt is successful, but I can't explain why or how. I just run through the door. This could be an instance of the game easing up and letting me through, or perhaps a bug of some sort. Oh well. In Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, we play as the titular Senua in the distant past somewhere around the land of the Celts and Vikings or the Northmen. On our travels we are guided by many voices and the visions of a wanderer known as Druth. We eventually come upon two pathways. One leads to Valraven, or Valraven, and the other leads to Surt, the god of fire. During the trials along the way to face Surt, we must forge our way with flame. This is another environmental chase sequence, and if you want to be pedantic about it, you could call it an escape sequence rather than a chase sequence, but then I would argue that running away from a monster's just a escape from the monster sequence. So it's just more semantics. Anyway, back to Senua. We activate the chase/escape sequence by focusing on the depiction of Surt. Notice that we walk the path leading up to the sequence start, and we are loosely guided by the ashen corpses. If you can handle a little panic and stay focused on your goal, escaping this one should be straightforward. Further down the pathway we face a more complicated escape. We immediately turn and face the open door. The exit is seen in the back, highlighted by the trees forming a triangle. However, we are blocked by the fire, which also bends to the left, leading to the house we've previously been through. We presented with two pathways, one of which is quickly blocked off by falling rubble. We are then corralled around the stairway, leading to the smaller building and back to the outside area. Notice that the trees have fallen directly in front of us, forcing a turn once again. I instinctively turned towards the exit. Here we must fight past the enemy, and afterwards we quickly reorient ourselves, saving us from Surt's fire once more. This is all to say that we are already semi-familiar with the space before the fire and the panic. We were somewhat cleverly led down the one pathway through the burning building, and after a brief fight, we managed to get the exit. I would argue this is a great example of creating enough tension or perceived tension to raise the heart rate a little, but at the same time crafting the environment so that it's easier to navigate, giving the player just enough assistance where it's needed. One other factor specific to this game is that death does matter. Having that in the back of your mind will up the ante somewhat. Deeper still into this mysterious place, we arrive at a swamp surrounded by fog and gnarled trees. In this swamp, there is an abandoned house filled with what could be described as ghosts. We are hounded by voices and a clamor that tells us to run. Run where? The bright light at the end of the hall looks promising, but no. That's more like an angry mob, and we've ran directly into it. Again, the lessons are not learned, but somewhat helpful voices come through and tell us to run away. After that, we change tactics and run the other way. This allows us to realize that there is a more pure light guiding us. Reaching this light, we are supposed to focus our runes to unlock the area. Learning that, the real chase is on. Stay away from the angry orange glow and look for the white light that collects the runes. Thankfully, the angry mob cannot simply pass through the walls, and there are puddles of water that reflect the white light, hinting as to where to go. Cutting it close, we are successful. Once the objective becomes clear, it's fairly easy to maneuver around to focus on the runes due to how nimble Senua can be, and the room is well lit. These sequences, I would argue, are on the better side, though it can quickly become frustrating, especially due to the more severe punishment on death. Each attempt is fairly short, and the environment mostly aids you in your escape. Senua's inner dialogue will change and can provide some hints as to what to do in any given scenario. In Amnesia Rebirth, we play as Tazi Trianon, exploring the exotic sands of Algeria. Along our journey, we find an abandoned military fort, and here we search for answers to what has happened to us and our crew. We then discover the body of our fallen comrade, Jonathan. His body lays lifeless and, more disturbingly, without a head. Lit by oil lamps and matches, we proceed down the dark corridors. In the darkness, a screech of terror rings out and instills panic in us. This millet. Now that fear is settling in, we must hurry. Not knowing where to go and being completely unfamiliar with the layout puts us at a severe disadvantage. Reaching what appears to be a dead end, I attempt to hide. This, however, was futile, and the monster quickly caught us. After a struggle with the horrid beast, we see flashes of where we've been, in between some unknown alien-like visage. We awake in a confused state, but not only is Tazi confused, we, the player, are also confused. We struggled with the monster, so were we successful or not? Were we intended to get caught? Adding to the confusion is the quartermaster's storeroom is now open and contains saltpeter, the item necessary to progress, which would indicate that we were intended to get caught by the monster. I have mixed feelings on intended captures in games. I think if the monster were to pop out and grab you, it would strongly indicate that you weren't supposed to be able to get away. But in this case, you can run away for some time. Afterwards, we simply proceed out the door, at least not before a quick reminder that we're now being watched. And also, as an aside, just to think about it, this may not be an intended capture, rather than you can get captured and struggle and still proceed in the game. It's just a type of forgiveness. Sometime later on, we find ourselves deep in an underground cistern. Unlocking doorways to proceed, the monster once again appears, this time out through a hole in the wall. We again must act quickly in a poorly lit room for a place to hide. And once again, I failed to escape the monster, though unlike last time, we are just thrown backwards. I can't tell if I then successfully hid from the monster or if the game was easing back, allowing us to continue. Either way, being intentionally caught or having the monster run away after catching you reduces the effectiveness of the threat, in my opinion. Though this isn't the most egregious example of repetition leading to frustration, it's confusing at the very least. Also, this being early on in the game is not a good indication. even if this one chase was not overly frustrating. In Little Nightmares, we play as a tiny unknown being dressed in a yellow raincoat, escaping a large and gloomy vessel full of larger beings that seem to enjoy the taste of our bones and flesh. As part of the DLC, we take control of one of the lost children on board. Various parts of the ship are also flooded, and in some of these waters hides a hideous creature just waiting for us to dive in. Though it's dark, we are equipped with a torch and there is a faint light offering some visibility. We also can take our time to plan the route before jumping in. Once we do, however, bubbles rise and they never looked more terrifying than now. We quickly make our way from one safe point to another, just out of the reach of the deadly threat. Unfortunately, we were caught, though this section is not very long and it's a quick retry. Once we get our footing, it becomes easier to avoid capture, yet the threat still creates a sense of excitement. The player direction is clear here, with most objects being spotlighted and close enough to see in view of the camera. Upon failure, each attempt is short, though could become frustrating and lose the sense of fear if many attempts failed. This is true in most, if not all, chase sequences. Seeing where the unknown creature is lurking helps the player navigate whilst creating the tension/excitement of being devoured or dragged down into the murky depths below. In Maid of Sker, we play as Thomas Evans searching for his lover, Elizabeth, in Sker Hotel. When we arrive, we are greeted by creatures, though blind, still dangerous. This allows us to maneuver around as long as we're quiet. We have the ability to hold our breath for a fair but limited time, and of course moving slowly and watching our footing increases our chances of not getting caught. It can still be frustrating getting lost, having to slowly plod around to find your way through the entire game. A little while later, we do happen to find a device that emits a devastating sound that temporarily cripples the monster in case you get stuck with your back against the wall. Even though there could be improvements to these concepts, overall, if you take your time, there's a good amount of control you have in any given situation. Though there is no chase sequence, the game's fundamental mode of traversal is one great escape. This can quickly and dynamically morph into a chase. I would argue that given such limited toolset and game mechanics, the game feels more frustrating than not, though it becomes somewhat easier with time due to how familiar the player becomes with the hotel. Now, hear me out. We are being chased in this game. It's just not what you expect. In Assassin's Creed 2, we play the role of Ezio Auditore de Firenze. Oh! Ezio did not kill civilians. The one and only you know and love. Ezio, of course, is best pals with Leonardo da Vinci, and Leo needs some help getting across town. Not long after a little trek along the countryside, the Borgia attack, Leonardo takes cover as we spur our horses and tighten the reins. This is a chase, but not like the others. We control the horses pulling us along, and we can also steer, but within limits. Like having the guardrails up at the bowling alley. As the Borgia attempt to capture us, we can rock the cart side to side, but go a little too hard, and the baby's tipping right over. Now hopefully you can see that this is a chase. Think about the questions and how the sequence answers them. It's quick to retry and failure, and easy to comprehend the controls and feeling. We don't need to worry so much as to where we're going, which in turn keeps the excitement high and the illusion of high stakes. You could argue that this is overly simplified, and I would partially agree, though hopefully you can see that this is at least one way of handling a chase sequence that needs to be achievable and somewhat exciting for a large percentage of the players. In A Plague Tale Requiem, we take on the role of Amnesia de Rune in the French medieval countryside. Not only is the city plague-ridden, as the name suggests, it's also filled with corruption. The de Rune somehow have a connection with the plague, specifically Amnesia's younger brother, Hugo, or Hugo. In this section, we are securing a boat to escape the city, and as we head back to gather our family, the whole city trembles. It's the plague-filled rats rampaging through brick and stone, and we must run away. We are immediately set down a linear street which leads to a fenced dead end. This, however, is marked by a white, dirt-like substance. Jumping over the fence also pans the camera so that we are now facing Amnesia. This is an interesting move. It's very cinematic and exciting, but also we are essentially running on rails. No quick time events, no drastic decisions. Easy, simple, and effective for a chase sequence. Passing through a door, we have a small reprieve from the rats. Crossing through indoors, again, a linear path highlighted by candlelight. Out through a window, the chase is back on. Running down the passageways, the light leads the way, and as we approach a fork in the path, the rats completely block our way. Down the turn, the rats threaten us from the periphery again, but we are led by the moonlight behind a conspicuous tree in the foreground, catching our eye to guide us in the right direction. In addition to the backlit tree, the pathway is also framed by the triangular shape in the background and the stone railing. We rush down the pathway as our eye is drawn by the candlelight, making it more difficult to even notice the woman as we run by. The rats then suddenly cut us off and the camera turns towards Amnesia once again. One misturn and it's all over. The second time though, the camera seems to be in a better place, and of course the turn was anticipated. We run down the stairs until a small opening is reached in the wall and pass through. The camera returns to behind Amnesia as the moonlight is in full view. The pathway is more distinct on the rooftops as the center of the roof guides us to an opening that also has a candle-lit window in the distance behind. A small fall downwards, we remain on the rooftops. Everything is crumbling away more and more as we rush forwards. The rats nearly catch us as we pass through another opening between the houses, again with aided candlelight with a larger tower in the background. Down the short stairway, we are guided directly to the wooden door with yet again another candlelight. After all that, we can definitely say that there is a lot of player feedback. Your sense of direction is firmly guided by the rats as they block the way. Less noticeably is the candlelights and moon. And even less than that are the structures and shape of the pathways, like the rooftops. The repeated attempts are not very frustrating because of the clarity and direction, and the checkpoints are frequent. Though it would appear that each attempt is the same difficulty, only reduced due to the repeated attempts. I would say, for the most part, A Plague Tale does a good job of raising the tension while maintaining the illusion of danger. Now for a change of pace. In Battlefield Bad Company 2, we take control of Preston Marlowe and a four-man squad. Somewhere in Russian territory, our mission begins. As a side tangent, I would like to say that I think this game still looks really good, and the sound design is fantastic. Also, I've never actually completed this game. I used to play multiplayer all the time, but that was it. Anywho, this is Sarge's last mission before retirement, a classic staple of a great military story. I do hope that nothing ruins his plans. That would be unfortunate. To cut to the chase, pun intended, after blasting through the enemy soldiers, our squad commandeers a truck for their great escape. Once in the vehicle, however, we are chased down. Unlike the other chase sequences, we have no control on where we're going. So much so that we aren't even front-facing. Instead, we just have to focus on taking out enemy vehicles along the road. As the action swells, the sequence climaxes as we take down a helicopter in an explosive fashion. Looks like our boys lived another day to fight. As for Sarge, looks like his retirement has been postponed. Who would have guessed? Also, who came up with the name Special Activities Division? SAD? Sad? I guess this nerd's not sad about it. I stuck this chase sequence here to demonstrate a much more casual approach. Again, we don't control where we're going, it's completely on rails. All the focus is placed on eliminating the threats in front of us. It's not overly difficult to complete the sequence on your first go, and if you fail, it's not overly lengthy to repeat. You're also more prepared on repeated attempts, but this could become quite repetitive and frustrating on multiple failures. I would say that sequences like this aim for a pure thrilling experience and reduce as much friction/frustration. The next game takes another more cinematic approach to the chase sequence. In The Last of Us, called retroactively Part 1, we play as Joel. He's a single father taking care of his daughter Sarah. The story begins quickly with a quiet panic, and then it all starts going south soon. We then escape with our brother Tommy. As we are attempting to leave the city, complete pandemonium breaks out, and we must continue on foot. Thus starts our chase sequence. I suppose this is a different sort of chase, as we're more or less running along with the crowd, at least at first. What aids us is this very crowd, subtly guiding us down the streets. With the gas station almost immediately exploding, we turn away and go with the flow. There are now flaming buildings on either side of us and people running and screaming, leading us down the street. Funneled past an abandoned fire truck, there is a clever car accident blocking the turn, and down the opposite direction, it's also blocked by a flaming car wreck. Our path lays ahead of us, still joined by the scared citizens. Our eyes are then immediately drawn towards the illuminated Armadillo Theater, and our attention is further drawn by the police lights and flames down the street. Upon another explosion, we are then redirected down the alleyway, and to further reinforce this, there is a single street light still glowing right on the corner, and the buildings on the opposite side of the street are all powered off. This is more subconsciously acknowledged as the events play out quickly, but I would argue that it all adds to the clear direction that the developer had intended, while simultaneously letting the player still feel in control. One other thing to note is Tommy is wearing a red shirt that stands out when passing under the streetlights. Speaking of Tommy, he then takes the lead as he escorts now Joel and Sarah through the alleyway. Make sure not to dilly-dally, as there are hungry cannibals ready to take a bite out of Joel the first chance they get. We are then separated from Tommy, and the first thing we see is another tussle, and a somewhat obvious floodlight glowing over an opening in the stone barrier, including orange construction cones and brightly lit caution tape. This is obvious, yet also very believable if not contrived. Running through this onto a dirt path, we're blocked on either side by rocks and trees, yet our next destination is already visible. A crashed ambulance calls us forward with what we've already seen before, glowing lights and yellow tape, or straps in this case, blowing in the wind. We pass by the ambulance, and lo and behold, the moon is directly above our exit, including another sort of floodlight just at the apex of the hill we are ascending. Again, one must hurry, making our decision-making more instinctual. Immediately after this, we finish the chase sequence. Breaking this down, it seems like quite a lot in such a short amount of time, and it is. But most of the tricks to guide the player are more subtle and in the background of our mind as we run through. I would say this sequence strikes a great balance of player direction and perceived freedom while keeping the pressure on so that there's little to no lagging behind. Upon failure, the checkpoints are quick and close enough together as to reduce any frustration, though it is not unlikely that many players will succeed on their first attempt, adding to the gameplay/cinematic fusion experience many chase sequences strive to convey. This next game is one that has stuck in my mind and has partially inspired this entire presentation/video essay. In Outlast, we play as Miles Upshur, investigating Mount Massive Asylum and its dark secrets. There are no weapons. Your only tool is a camcorder that eats batteries faster than a hungry hippo, and of course, running. Miles can run and hide when necessary. While running, Miles is able to turn around just to steal a glance or two at the horror that is chasing him before turning the corner or ducking under a bed for safety. The atmosphere is oppressive and brooding, and I think still holds up today, but boy, there are a lot of chase sequences. This first one is in an office-like building with a long hallway and many doors on either side. As you approach the dimly lit hallway, the large monster appears at the end, silhouetted in the distance. The door to our immediate left is a large office with another door looping back to the main hallway. In order to proceed, we must find a way to hide from the monster and time our escape carefully. Of course, the monster finds us with his human detection skills or "I smell the blood of an Englishman" energy. Knowing what I know now, the way out might seem obvious, but the hunt is on and I'm on the run. I opted to run scared down the hall as far as possible. What I failed to notice was a door opened ajar. This goes by quickly, and the game does try to catch your attention by the use of a blood-stained TV with static image. I missed this door and ran to the end of the hallway. There is another room at the end with a small light on that must have grabbed my attention. There is also a brightly colored vending machine here as well. I tried to quickly find a hiding spot, but it's too late. I then darted around a table, but I was too slow. My next attempt is much slower. I turn down the dark hallway and realize it's a dead end. I must surely get past the monster. With that thought in mind, I once again run past the monster and completely miss the intended room. Running back the way I came, I enter the first door on the right. This is what we're looking for. You do need enough time to look around and realize that the vent is open, but thankfully I quickly spotted that. The next sequence is again in a very similar hallway with offices on either side. I drop in from the vent above with a bookshelf at my back. There is only two ways forward. A few steps down the hall, the monster is back, forcing Miles down the open corridor to the right. This, however, is ultimately a dead end, a series of rooms that lead nowhere and are only supposed to offer a way around the monster. This is not known nor obvious, I would argue. It is a rather long hallway with many rooms, many decisions, all under extreme pressure from the monster. Using a large office to make myself unknown, I run back to the entrance of the hallway where I started. Running towards where the monster was first spotted, there seems to be no rooms along the way, and there are two doors spotlighted at the end. The door to the left is open slightly, but the angle makes this difficult to tell. The door to the right leads to a washroom. Due to split-second decision-making and perhaps a right-handed bias, I chose the washroom. Slipping past the monster's grasp, I exit the washroom, never noticing a now dark room directly in front. Instead, I bolted back down the hallway once again. Ultimately, not knowing where to go, I succumbed to the monster's wrath. After that, it was all downhill. Like, I don't get it. Am I supposed to go where? Where the fuck am I supposed to fucking go? Nope. Seriously? Oh my god. Oh, he instantly fucking saw me. That... In the past, you might have to crawl through a vent in a small room. You might even have to break out through a window along the building. It's not exactly clear that this time you have to maneuver around the monster to where he came from. Eventually, I do figure this out, and again the intended room is lit by moonlight from the unshaded windows, and the open vent is illuminated by an overturned vending machine. Upon repeated attempts, this quickly devolves into frustration. There are some indicators as to where to go, but there's little time to examine your surroundings and form a plan. I do understand that seems to be the intention: induce panic and confusion, increase the tension. Yet after a fair share of failures, this compounds any frustration and sours the mood completely. These instances in Outlast aren't necessarily intrinsically designed poorly. Rather, I would like to use this to highlight the fine line between adrenaline-fueled escape and the spiral of frustration. How far immersion should be broken, or rather, how far can immersion be broken while maintaining the illusion of player control? A difficult question, to be sure. Now we reach the final game I would like to examine. There is only one way this could be introduced, so I'll let the game do the talking. That's right, it's Deadly Premonition. So let's join Francis York Morgan,
FBI Special Agent Francis York Morgan,
or you can call him York, on a chase or two. The first chase takes place in a lumber mill, though this lumber mill has been taken over by strange dark forces. Down the mill, York encounters the Redcoat Killer. Escaping his wrath by hiding, York proceeds further into the mill. Through the dark corridors, the Redcoat Killer surprises York with a kick through the door. This means the chase is on. The first thing to notice is the dual camera point of view. Our view is facing York, looking behind, and the other is from the killer's perspective, though over the shoulder third person. The next thing to realize is that you don't decide where to go. This is what allows to have a more interesting point of view. The player must press alternating buttons to move York forward, but no direction has to be decided. At various points, York will have to traverse any obstacles along the way, and even evade any incoming projectiles from the killer. This splits the player's attention and increases the tension and creates the excitement a chase strives to achieve. All this would be absolutely infuriating if it wasn't for the fact that any decision on where to go is already taken care of. Even with this to your advantage, if York is caught, we are given a chance to escape with a QuickTime event. After running a short while later, York jumps through a door and gets away safely, for now. The next chase uses the same mechanics as before, a 2-camera point of view, and no need to decide where to go. The tension is maintained by the various obstacles, and I would argue knowing where the killer is raises the tension / excitement because you can see firsthand how close you are to getting caught. Very similar to how you see the bubbles in The Little Nightmare. This all combines to create a great atmosphere of playability and perceived danger. The player must make active decisions and maintain control of the situation, while the game alleviates the frustration and confusion of not knowing where to go. Upon failure, the player is given a second chance through the use of QuickTime events, and the entire sequence is generally on the easier side. That being said, the overall enjoyment of these sequences was very high in my opinion. Seeing the killer's perspective, evading the projectiles, and moving through obstacles kept my attention, kept me engaged while not having the frustration of not knowing where to go in an unfamiliar place. So, what makes a good chase sequence versus a bad one? Hopefully I've answered that question for these games, and next time you're on the run, you can think about what makes this frustrating, or what makes this fun and exciting. As always, I want to thank you very much for watching. Special shout out to the channel members, and make sure to leave a like if you liked it, or any feedback. Subscribe to never miss a live stream or upload. Bye!